Hi everyone, my name is Keith Brooks and this is Brooks Channel, and for today's video we're going to be covering another chapter of the first draft of my Outcasts novel. Now last video we covered the second chapter, which introduced the third of the main protagonists, Jay, and how he went on to meet the other two main protagonists, Joey and Mitch. Now for chapter 3 we're going to be covering how the fourth of the main protagonists are introduced and how he ends up meeting the previous three. Yep. And like I said, this is only the first draft, so some of it may be a little iffy. I might change it up later on. So without further ado, let's open it up and start reading. Alright, chapter 3. Another week later, in Highmore's Magic District, a certain man was preparing himself for work. He stood just a little over 6 feet, with a dark complexion and a toned physique honed from decades of training. After packing the rest of his essential gear into his bag, the man put on his sapphire blue robe, symbolizing the guild he represents. This man's name is Woody Johnson Sr., co-founder and second-in-command of the Sapphire Wolves Mage Guild. Having helped found it shortly after moving to Highmore with his now ex-wife, the Sapphire Wolves were established mainly to help the town's mages in finding work. After seeing the mistreatment and discrimination of mages by most citizens, Woody Sr. sought to help however he could. After meeting Jason Davis, the district's representative, they soon pulled what little resources together to start the guild. However, with most in the South relying on local police and bounty hunters, the guild receives very little work. Regardless of this, the Sapphire Wolves stay open in the hopes of helping mages across the South find work and hopefully acceptance. As Woody Sr. was about to leave, he heard the front door slowly open. He turned to see a little boy around 7 years old. The boy had the same dark skin tone as Woody Sr., with hazel-colored eyes and black hair and a similar, lightly buzzed style. This boy was his son, Woody Johnson Jr. Woody Jr. stood there in the doorway for a moment while holding his book bag in his right hand, and his head hung down. Tears started to flow from his eyes before looking up at his dad. Pages are stuck. There we go. "Dad," he muttered while trying to fight back his tears. Woody Sr. walked up to his son, knowing already what happened. "Tell me what happened," Woody Sr. said while kneeling down to his son's eye level. Woody Jr. wiped his eyes before speaking. "After class, I went behind the school to practice. Then those guys from last time came and pushed me down. They all laughed at me and said magics were losers." Woody Sr. looked at his son for a moment before hugging him. "I'm sorry you have to keep going through this," he said. "If their parents weren't the same, I'd ask them to set their boy straight." He let Woody Jr. go to see his still sad face. Woody Jr. wiped another tear away from his eyes and started to calm down. "Why do they hate magic so much?" he asked his dad, desperately wanting an answer. "They just don't understand it like we do," Woody Sr. replied. "They're all stuck in the old ways. They even try to." He then stood up and looked down at his son. "That's why Mr. Davis and I founded the Sapphire Wolves, to try and help people understand how amazing magic can be. Hopefully, with that and some time, things will be a bit better for people like us." "Well, I want to help too," Woody Jr. shouted eagerly. "I want to join the guild and help make things better too." "I know you do," Woody Sr. said with a small smile on his face. "But you have to be at least 18 to join, and of course be able to perform basic magic." Woody looked away briefly, knowing he still hadn't even been able to channel mana through his body. "That's why I'm trying to practice so much." "Don't worry so much about it," Woody Sr. said reassuringly. "You only just started training. It's not something you can learn in a few weeks. You'll get it one day soon." Woody Jr. just smiled up at his dad without a word. Alright, I need to take care of some details for my job tomorrow, Woody Sr. said as he walked to the door. When I get back, we'll have dinner, then do a little training. Okay, Dad, Woody Jr. said while waving his dad out the door. Once his dad shut the door behind him, Woody Jr. had an idea. He could just get a head start on his magic training while at home by himself. Dad and training with Dad should help me get better faster, he thought to himself. Set on the idea, he hurried to the backyard to get started. After about 10 minutes of setting up, Woody was ready to begin. He stood about 20 feet away from a training dummy his dad had laying around and closed his eyes. Alright, remember what Dad said, Woody thought to himself while recalling what his dad had taught him. Clear your mind. Keep your breathing calm. Hold your hands out to what you want to aim at, and focus. If I do all that, I should be able to channel my mana into a stream of water from my hands. Woody Sr. chose water magic as the first type to teach his son. While never having any serious problems with his own training, he heard a few unsettling stories of kids practicing other elements going horribly wrong, such as one child trying fire magic, burning his whole house down, or a young girl's incident with light magic blinding herself and her whole family for a week. After much thinking, Woody Sr. believed water would be the closest to safe to start with. Doing everything his dad told him to do, Woody Jr. held both his hands together and aimed them at the dummy. He concentrated and tried keeping his mind cleared, but nothing happened. He kept trying for another 5 minutes and still nothing. After another 5 minutes, thoughts of doubt started to creep into Woody's mind. As he began wondering what he was doing wrong, a voice shouted behind him. "What you doing?" The voice shouted loudly, making Woody jump up with a wah. He quickly turned around to see a boy around his age, standing there with his hands in his pockets and a smile on his face. Woody just looked at him in confusion for a moment before speaking. "Who are you?" Woody asked with suspicion in his voice. "I'm Joey," the boy said, introducing himself. "Who are ye?" I'm Woody," he said, feeling uneasy at Joey's unusual behavior. "Hey, Joey," Mitch called out while running over to him. Jay, who had been hanging out with them soon after they met, followed close behind. The three boys wandered into the Magic District out of curiosity as to why so many adults told them to stay away from it. During their wandering, through the streets, Joey stopped and noticed Woody in the middle of his magic training. Piqued with curiosity, he went to investigate. "What did you want off for?" Mitch asked after he and Jay hopped over Woody's fence. "And who's this?" Jay asked, pointing at Woody. Oh, this is Woody," Joey replied. "I saw him looking like he was doing something cute, and I wanted to see what it was." I'm sorry, my brain cramped out there for a sec. Woody just looked at the three nervously. He knew everyone in the Magic District and could quickly tell none of them lived there. With how kids at school treat him for it, he was uneasy about talking about practicing magic. However, with no other explanation coming to mind, he felt no choice but to tell the truth. "Well," Woody hesitated for a moment before finally speaking. "I was practicing magic." After saying it, he instinctively braced himself to either get laughed at or hit. The boy's response, however, was something he did not expect. "You can do magic?" Joey said with his eyes practically sparkling. "What?" Woody looked over at him, even more confused than before. "Makes sense with this part of town we're in," Mitch chimed in. "You know any good tricks?" Jay walked up next to Mitch before speaking. "I've never seen magic up close before, but what I've heard of sounds pretty cool." Woody couldn't believe what he was hearing. Not only did these boys he just met want to see him use magic, but they even called it cool. As much as he wanted to show them, he couldn't deny his lack of skill. Once again, he had to confess. Well, I actually can't use any yet, Woody admitted. I only just started learning last month, and I still don't know how to make anything. He hung his head in embarrassment. They'll probably think magic's lame after this, he thought to himself. The three boys just looked at him silently for a moment before they had a chance to speak. However, they heard someone behind them. "Hey, assholes!" a voice shouted angrily. The boys turned around to see who was yelling out at them. Mitch, Jay, and Woody each recognized someone. The first was the younger brother of the girl Mitch peeped on the day he met Joey. The second was the bully that harassed Jay just last week. The third and final was one of the boys that messed with Woody at school. "Ah, crap," Mitch muttered to himself, looking at the first bully. Jay looked at the second with an angry look forming on his face as his fists clenched in anger. Woody looked at the third with a worried face, and Joey stood next to him, shaking in fear. As they looked on, the three bullies hopped Woody's fence and stood just a few feet away. "We've been looking for you," the first bully said, looking at Mitch. "You're gonna get it for creeping on my sister. I heard you were hanging out with that perv," the second bully said to Jay. "Do you think I was gonna let you get away with messing up my face?" He pointed to his nose, which was noticeably crooked. "I'm stuck like this for life." While his friends were yelling, the third bully looked over at Woody. A devious smile grew on his face. "This must be my lucky day," he said smugly. "I was just gonna help my friends beat up some losers, but I get to beat up you some more too?" Woody wasn't sure what to do. He didn't know about Mitch and Jay's beef with them, but all three bullies have targeted him more than once. If Dad were here, he could stop this, but who knows when he'll be back, Woody thought to himself. All he could do was stand there in fear. "It's your own fault for being such a prick," Jay yelled at the second bully. Mitch took a few steps forward before speaking to the first one. "You really needed to bring your friends to help you deal with me?" Mitch asked, while a smug smile formed on his face. "What, can't fight for yourself?" The first bully's face tensed in anger as Mitch taunted him. "Shut up," he yelled at Mitch, while balling his fists. "Let's get 'em!" All three bullies immediately charged at the boys while screaming loudly at them. "Alright, let's do this," Mitch yelled, running to the bullies. Jay quickly followed behind him. Joey, not being a fighter and having to hide his boxing glove hands, just hid behind a box a few feet away. Woody, still not sure what to do, just stood by watching the events unfold. Both sides quickly collided and began trading blows. Mitch went one-on-one with the first bully, only taking a couple of light hits while blocking most of the rest and hitting him multiple times. Jay fought the other two at the same time, easily punching or pushing them down with his superior strength, and knocking them back down when they got back up. Joey peeked from behind the box and looked on at the fight. He was amazed at how strong Mitch and Jay looked, beating up those big scary bullies. As cool as it felt watching, he couldn't help but wish he could be as strong as his friends. Woody looked on with similar impression. From not hating him for practicing magic to being brave enough to fight the bullies, they both seemed really cool. After a few punches to the face, the first bully fell to the ground. He looked up to see Mitch standing over him. Angry and desperate, the bully quickly kneeled back up and punched Mitch in the crotch. "Oh!" Mitch groaned as he kneeled over in pain. The head bully then got back up to his feet and rushed to help his friends. He went up to Jay, who had his back turned, and punched him in the back of the head. Jay let out a brief cry of pain while staggering from the unexpected attack. Left with room to recover, the other two bullies got back up and knocked Jay to the ground. They all then started kicking him while he was down, leaving him too overwhelmed to get back up. Still hiding behind the box, Joey looked on as the bullies relentlessly assaulted Jay, while Mitch was in too much pain to help him. What do I do? Joey asked himself, though as much as he wanted to help his friends, he was too frozen in fear to try anything. Woody was similarly lost in thought. He had only just met these three not 10 minutes ago, and had no ties to them. Then there was the fact they were being attacked by the same bullies that tormented him whenever they could, and he was scared stiff of them. Though even with those facts in mind, something inside Woody told him he had to do something. Without even thinking, Woody took a few steps forward while holding his hands up and together. "Please work," Joey pleaded to himself as he followed the steps his dad taught him. After a few seconds, he could feel something flowing through his body and up his arms. Knowing this must be it, he aimed his hands at the head bully and focused as hard as he could. Then, finally, a burst of water rushed out of Woody's hands and hit his target right on his right leg. The head bully stopped, kicking Jay as he felt the water hit his leg. His friends also stopped, noticing what had just happened. They all turned to Woody as the stream died down, his face looking nervous as the three started to approach him. "Heh, was that supposed to hurt?" the head bully asked Woody tauntingly. "My mom's garden hose hurts more than that." He then grabbed Woody by the collar and lifted him up, while raising up his fist. "Stuff like that's why magic's for losers." "Excuse me," a voice called out, causing everyone else to turn their heads to the source. They all saw Woody Sr. walking through the backyard's gate, stopping just a few yards from them. He then looked over at the bullies, giving the head one a stern look that made him freeze up. "Why are you boys trying to hurt my son?" Woody Sr. asked, with a serious tone in his voice. The head bully quickly let Woody Jr. go, before turning to speak to his target's dad. "Well, you see, we were just..." He slowly stopped. Hang on, sorry about that. He slowly stopped, failing to come up with a way to explain his actions. Yeah, sorry about that again. "Did I hear you saying magic's for losers?" Woody Sr. asked. "Well, Woody only just started learning, so he can't do much right now. So please, let me show you something you might find a bit more impressive." Woody Sr. then held his right hand above his head, with a small smile on his face. After about 3 seconds, a stream of fire shot out of his palm and into the sky. The flames shot up about 50 feet before forming into the shape of a phoenix. The three bullies looked for just a moment before running away in fear. Woody and the other boys just looked up in awe at the sight before them. As the bullies ran out of sight, Woody Sr. closed his hand, causing the flames in his hand to quickly disappear. "Guess that was a little too much for them," he said jokingly. He then walked up to Woody, who just started to calm himself down. "You okay, Woody?" his dad asked, while kneeling down to look him in the eye. Woody Jr. looked his dad in the eyes back, while tears started forming. "Dad," Woody Jr. said before running up and hugging him. His dad hugged him back in silence for a moment. "It's all right. They're gone now," Woody Sr. told his son assuringly. Woody Jr. let go of his dad before speaking. "I know," he said while wiping the tears from his eyes. "It's just I finally used magic, but it didn't do anything. It wasn't even close to yours." He hung his head in shame after saying this. Woody Sr. put a hand on his son's shoulder and gave him a reassuring smile. "That was only your first time using magic," he said. "No one pulls off a super strong spell on their first try. Though, you managed it sooner than I did. It took till I was 10 to use a basic fire spell." Woody Jr. looked up at his dad with a little smile. "Dad," was the only word he could utter at that point. They both let go and looked at the three boys still in the yard. Mitch had finally started to recover from the cheap shot he received and went to help Jay up. "Ugh," Jay groaned out while grabbing Mitch's hand and standing up. Joey stood up from behind the box and went up to his friends. "Mitch, Jay, are you okay?" Joey asked worriedly. I've taken worse," Jay said calmly. "Yeah, those pricks just got lucky," Mitch added. "What about you?" I'm sorry," Joey shouted with a sad face. "I wanted to help, but I was too scared. All I could do was hide while they were hurting you. I... He tried to speak, but kept choking on his words. Mitch walked up to Joey and tapped his arm. "Hey, don't worry about it," he said assuringly. "Like I said, they got lucky." "Yeah, don't beat yourself up over it," Jay chimed in. "We're just glad you're okay." All Joey could do was smile at them while holding back tears. As they kept talking, Woody Sr. walked up to them with curiosity. "Now who are you boys?" he asked as the three turned around nervously. After a moment of silence, Mitch took a step forward. "We're from the other side of town, sir," Mitch said, unusually formal. "We got curious about the Magic District and came to check it out. Those other kids followed us here because they were pissed at us. It's our fault your son almost got hurt." Joey bowed his head as he and Jay both said sorry. Woody Sr. just held his hand up at the boys for a moment. "You're not responsible for what other people do," he said to the boys. "I don't know why those boys targeted you, but it couldn't have been anything severe enough for that kind of abuse." Mitch started thinking of when he spied on the head bully's sister, while Jay remembered punching the second one on the street, both wondering how much they had those hits coming. "Hey, are you guys okay?" Woody asked, walking up next to his dad. "Yeah, thanks to you and your dad," Mitch said to him. "That was pretty cool. Especially the giant firebird," Jay added. "And I liked how you shot water from your hands," Joey said. Woody Jr. smiled awkwardly while looking down. "Thanks. Just sorry I couldn't do more than that," he said to them. "You're still learning," Jay said. "Just keep working on it." "Yeah, you'll be an awesome mage," Mitch added. "You can do it, Woody," Joey cheered. Woody Jr. smiled more as he lifted his head to face them. "Thanks," was all he could say. "Well, looks like you finally found some friends," Woody Sr. chimed in. "How about you boys join us for dinner? You can all get to know each other a little." All three boys eagerly accepted Woody Sr.'s offer, causing him and Woody Jr. to smile widely. As everyone started walking into the Johnson family's home, Joey stopped for a moment to look at Mitch, Jay, and Woody, all together. Just 2 weeks ago, he was all alone, without a single person to call a friend. Now there were three other boys who accepted him and would be by his side through anything. "Hey, Joey, you coming?" Mitch turned to ask him. He smiled and shouted, "Yep," before running up to them. Alright, that's the third chapter. Sorry if some of my reading was a little awkward. Yeah, my brain doesn't work so good sometimes. But yeah, that's basically how Woody gets introduced, along with his dad. Yeah, he can't really do a lot of magic right now, just a little bit of water from his hands. But yeah, this is only the prologue arc, so by the time the first arc starts up, he can do a little more. Yeah, the time between the prologue and the first arc is 7 years apart, so they'll all be 7 years older. Joey will be 15, Mitch and Jay 16, and Woody 14. So yeah, they'll be a good amount better than they are now. And that's when the story will officially begin. And the other two main protagonists show up in the two arcs that follow. the second and third. Fifth and sixth introduced respectfully. But yeah, next week we'll start a week or two from now, depending. We'll be starting up the fourth chapter, which will start the first official arc of the story. And I'll try to be less awkward reading that one. But either way, I hope you enjoyed listening. And not much else to say, so I'm just getting the video here. And as always, please let me know your thoughts about this war in the comments. And with that, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.